So let's get started. And I want to start with the stories of these three individuals that we have. While all three of them come from various backgrounds, I want to know when money became a conversation in their surroundings growing up. Now, that's an interesting question. Let's get started with you, Dr. Richardson.
Well, first of all,
let's make certain these microphones are on and ready.
I had to turn mine on. Can they hear me now?
Got it.
You guys can hear me now. Okay, so first of all, hello, Chicago. Woo! I am home. This is my first time hitting the ground since before the pandemic, so I am just so excited to be here. But my first conversation about money, as you all know, I've said this so many times, I was born and raised right here in Chicago. People say on which side? All sides. I was born on 44th and Cicero, the southwest side. And then I grew up on the east side. But my grandmother raised me. She was 75 years old, cleaning homes for wealthy people, putting me through college. She taught me to go to school, get a good education, get a good job, go to church on Sunday, wear clean underwear in case you get hit by a bus. I was like, why do I have to get hit by a bus? And if I get hit by the bus, will I have on any underwear when they find me? You know, it's a whole other story. But I didn't know a lot about money. I knew I wasn't rich. I knew we weren't rich, but I didn't feel poor. When I would ask Grandma for money, she'd tell me to look in the room on top of the shelf, behind the box, inside my pocketbook, inside a zipper, wrapped up in a piece of paper towel. It's $20. By the time I'd find the money, you know, I'd be too tired to spend it, or I forgot what I was looking for it for. I went off to college. I didn't have a financial education. I was at Northwestern University, young, black, gifted, and on this pathway to be what my grandmother dreamed for me to be. But I got a whole bunch of credit cards, couldn't pay anybody. When the creditors would call and say, can you borrow the money? I'd say, can I borrow it from you? I had all kind of funny answers. Fast forward, I get out to the real world. My credit is jacked up. My furniture's from Rent-A-Center. I have this bad relationship with money. Then I start making a lot of money, and it got worse. You see, more money doesn't solve a money problem. If it did, millionaires wouldn't go bankrupt. So here I was making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a month, not a year, a month, and I was still living check to Monday. And so that's when I changed everything, and now I spend my life helping people understand just that more money doesn't solve a money problem, which is why what's happening here today and going forward is so important, because it's not just about what you make, it's about what you keep and what you make grow. Rich people stay rich because they act poor. Poor people stay poor because they act rich. And poor people stay poor acting rich in front of other poor people, which is real crazy. So we're here to change that today.
Wow. Wow. MC Lyte.
What do I say after that? I'm here to learn. I can just say, you know, many of us, and I know Lynn and I have discussed this many times, is we all have this attitude, we'll spend it, we'll make more. Just spend it, we'll make more. Just spend it, we'll make more. And, you know, for me, I was blessed enough that as a kid getting into this business, my first record was released when I was 16, 17 years old. And so I had the opportunity to make a lot of money right out the gate. But in learning with Lynn, it's been a whole new frontier of how it is that I save my money, how I invest my money. It has become a new groundwork for me, because as an artist, we get out there and we spend it, and then we are waiting around for the next record, for the next tour. There was even a point where I had a house, a brand new house, but I didn't have money to put curtains on the windows. Now, this was back when I was 21, but I didn't know any better. No one taught me what a budget was. And although I heard you needed one, I was like, why do I need a budget? But it turns out that it doesn't matter how much money you have, a budget is necessary. So I'm learning all sorts of things being under the tutelage of my sister and expert, Dr. Lynn Richardson.
Now, as Mr. Bryant speaks, I want you all to listen to this, because I don't think this is something we realize. So MC Lyte just said that she started 16, 17 years old. But even then, if you are not taught to manage your money, this is, John, jump in. This is amazing. Isn't God good? Turn it on.
devil's a liar. That's why he didn't want to hear me say that. Isn't God good? Hold on a minute. The Bible suggests be hot or be cold.
Come on. Come on now.
If you're lukewarm, I'll spat you out.
Come on now.
Translation. Even God is not like mediocrity.
Yes.
You can't be half pregnant in this world. You either do it or you don't do it. Step in or step out. One more time. Isn't God good? Let me tell you something. Your city treasurer comes correct. I've been to 100 countries. I've been to thousands of cities. I founded an operation over 30 years ago. I've been doing this for a long time. $4 billion in capital invested in our neighborhoods. 4 million clients. 200 cities. 200 offices, 46 cities. These are full-time employees. Some of my teams are here today. I've dealt with 8 presidents. I've been honored by 5. I've served 3. Let me tell you something. I've never seen a city official do this, ever. And she won't be appreciated. She won't be appreciated, but that doesn't mean she didn't do it right. She even dressed right.
Come on now.
Let me tell you something. She's making smart sexy again.
Come on now. Hey, now. All right.
It takes 20 years to change a culture. In the last 20 years, we've made dumb sexy. We've dumbed down and celebrated it.
Come on now.
It's time to make smart sexy again. MC Lyte didn't come up here talking a bunch of traditional, expected, flossed out, low frequency slang. She came here talking like an enlightened, thoughtful, high frequency, experienced businesswoman in entertainment. The light came on in her head at some point. She learned what my Jewish friends learned in entertainment long time ago. It's the business of entertainment. Am I talking to myself? Quincy Jones said, my dear friend, won more Grammys than anyone, Grammy nominations. He said, if you think you're in the music business and you don't own publishing rights, licensing rights, or music rights, you're actually not in the music business, you're a temporary performer. We're going to have some church up in here. Y'all going to come alive this morning. I flew up in here on a Saturday morning. We gonna get some conversation going here. This is literally our time.
Yes. It is our time.
And I need you to understand that this moment is never going to happen again. We are sitting in a moment in history right now. It's never been in vogue in 400 years to be black. Not positively. It is now. But what are you going to do about it? She's found the rainbow after the storm. She went to somebody who knew more. We want to understand how to produce a record. Ms. Richardson would have gone to her.
Absolutely.
But she's trying to understand how money works.
That's it.
Let me tell you who's coming to me and having dinner quietly. Quavo. He's not talking about rap records and this and that. He's telling the fans, yo, I'll get you in a minute. John talked about how to own the block. This is 2 weeks ago. John, tell me about how to run my foundation properly. I don't want to just be writing checks and subsidizing people. How do we leverage money? How do we use, what's good debt and bad debt? He heard me say that. Good debt is debt that appreciates. No, sorry. Good debt is tied to assets that may appreciate. Bad debt is financing jewelry.
Yes. Come on now.
Financing tennis shoes.
Come on now.
Financing a vacation. Financing a sports ticket. They're even financing The rental of a car now. One rental of one car is being financed, and all we're asking is, what's the payment? You never ask what the payment is when there's an interest rate attached. Am I talking to myself? Let me tell you something. You hang around 9 broke people, you'll be the 10th. You want to know how not to be poor? Do the exact opposite of what poor people do. We make money during the day. You build wealth at night. You build wealth when you sleep. That is true. I'm going to say that one more time because we're obsessed with the wrong thing. What do all my friends say? By the way, T.I. is coming. Let's have dinner. Not talking about no music stuff. That's beautiful. He's talking about how to build wealth. Killer Mike, same thing. All these guys are really smart. They want to understand how to be a businessman.
Amen.
There's never been a person in her business, Ms. Lyte's business, or in the sports business that became a billionaire until they understood how the corporate game worked.
That's right.
Here's what my friends say. I want to make this money. I want to get this cash. I want to make this dollar. I want to get this money. I want to get paid. Wrong answer. Money has velocity. It's going somewhere. Anybody can make some money. Anybody can make money. You build wealth in your sleep.
That's right. Listen to that.
Listen
Do I have
to
2
that.
more minutes?
Next
What?
question, what? So let me say this, as he answered my second question, and I'm going to bring it over to these 2 ladies to answer this second question, but I want you all to really pay attention to when he spoke about building wealth in your sleep. That is amazing. But I also, as I asked MC Lyte and Dr. Richardson, what is generational wealth to them? Because John just answered that question. When I look around this room, I have to tell you all, as a black woman, elected treasurer of Chicago, as a black woman, yes, when I look around this room, and I know Dr. Richardson and John and MC Lyte can attest to this, being a woman in finance, a black woman in finance, when I walk into the room, I have to tell you all, not only am I the minority, I am the only one. And in many instances, I'm sitting around the room, and I'm not quiet, as you see. And so I'm inserting myself because if they don't ask my opinion, I am providing it because I went to school to earn 2 degrees to be able to provide my opinion. But when I look around this room, for me, I have to tell you all, this is what it's about. Because when my team put this event together, John, I want you to know that we had to think about what messaging to be able to attract the diversity of residents to this room. Because I understand, being born in Inglewood, raised on the west side, that finance is not necessarily spoken at the dinner table. So how are we going to bring you here to change lives today? So MC Lyte, tell us, what does generational wealth mean to you?
Right here, this moment.
Yes,
This moment, being able to empower people with knowledge and information. I happen to be the type of person where I need a diagram. I need instructions, directions that are purposeful and that are strategic. And I find that some of the best teaching that I've ever received as it relates to my finances and knowing what to do with incoming money is Dr. Lynn's teachings. Her 10-10-30-50 rule, you know, being out on the road with her, I get the opportunity to hear some of the same messaging and some new stuff every time that we go out. And I think it's so important that I'm in the space to get this information consistently, continuously. And so I begin to walk with it as I'm learning. I'm able to implement what it is that I'm being taught. And so for me and many others that you've named, Quavo, T.I., Killer Mike, you know, these are next level thought guys that are vibrating on a higher frequency. to be able to know what to do with that dollar as soon as it comes in. It has been the greatest reward, and I benefit every time that I hear Lynn speak. And I know it feels like I'm putting her on a soapbox, but I got to give respect where respect is due, specifically as it relates to how it impacts my life. And so being able to know what it does, a lot of times I remember as a kid, having money pile up in an account and saying, oh, it's there. And then I'm taken from it. Oh, it's there. And I'm taken from it. And Giz, one of my brothers, he had an 800 credit score. And I was like, well, how are you doing that? He said, well, none of the money stays in my account. I just make sure that it goes to where it needs to go. And my savings goes to another account. And so you're able to get these tidbits in different places, but it's right here, right now that is going to empower you for generational wealth. Because what it is that you learn today, and I love seeing people write or putting notes in your phones, because we can't take for granted what you're going to hear today, you're going to remember. So as long as you write that down and you're able to give that to family members, to members of your community, that is where generational wealth begins. Yeah.
Dr. Richardson, yes.
Wow, this is a loaded question for me, so I'm going to start all the way at the beginning. For me, generational wealth is holistic. Wealth, the acronym that we use, is wisdom, expansion, assets, leadership, transformation, and health. So yes, I was born into poverty. I was born into violence. I was born in the projects. But what generational wealth means is I'm the last one in my bloodline to be born into that situation. What generational wealth means to me is at this age, in my young 50 years, I have been able to see transformation. I've been able to see mental illness obliterated, toxic relationships obliterated, poverty obliterated. When I went to college, as wonderful as my grandmother was, she didn't have the money or the resources to fly me here or there and so on and so forth. So what generational wealth means to me is my oldest daughter, Sydney, graduated from Northwestern University. And she doesn't have to start at the bottom like I did. What generational wealth to me means is my middle daughter, Taylor, graduated from Howard University. And she doesn't have to start at the bottom like I did. What generational wealth means to me is my youngest daughter, Kennedy, is graduating next year from Howard University. And she doesn't have to start at the bottom. I say this and I believe it, that the number one reason we have not acquired wealth, the number one reason why the wealth gap still exists is because we don't help each other. That's the number one reason. There's a whole bunch of other reasons, but the number one reason is we don't help each other. But when the help is extended, we not only have an opportunity to receive the help, we have an obligation to receive the help. You see, everybody says knowledge is power. I say knowledge is not power until it's put into action. I'm tired of us getting knowledge and doing nothing with it. So what I would say to you about generational wealth, if you want to be wealthy, in those toxic relationships. You want to be wealthy? Find new friends who are going where you're trying to go. You want to be wealthy? Stop beating up on yourself. You want to be wealthy? Stop believing that it's not possible for you. One of the reasons why many of my students, the number one reason why many of my students, if they don't succeed, it's because they never believed that they could kick that spending addiction. So before they even started a financial class, they didn't believe that they could stick to it. You can go anywhere you believe you can go. And if you don't believe that you can make it, you are absolutely right. So generational wealth starts here, today, and now. And let me tell you something. Mr. John said something that's so key. I don't know if you got it. This is a season in time that will never happen again. People say the best is yet to come. No, come is here. Wow. The harvest is here, and the time is now. This is the season to win. This is the season to grow. And so for me, generational wealth means if I can do it, you can do it too.
Woo, the time is now. So I want to ask this question. I'm going to begin with MC Lyte, then Dr. Richardson, and then John Bryant. Now, everyone on this stage with me is nationally recognized for many outstanding accomplishments. Hundreds and thousands of people take value and expertise in finance. I want each of you to tell me how you have leveraged your influence to build wealth. And I think it's evident by them being on the stage this morning, and they certainly did not have to do that on a Saturday morning with us in Chicago at UIC. But we appreciate them, we respect them. And I want you all to know something. MC Lyte comes here often to Chicago. A few years ago, before the pandemic, I remember she did a concert out in Douglas Park on the west side of Chicago. I was there. It was so many people out in the park at Douglas Park. I want you all to pay attention to this, and I'm going to let her answer. It was so many people. I was so glad that I was an elected official at the time so I can go over to the VIP lounge and I can have a good seat. Because if I didn't, I would not have a seat. That was to hear her in concert. I'm glad to see you here in the room, but I need us to show up to learn about building generational wealth and being free financially, the same as we do to hear her perform in concert. So I want her to speak because I know her influence goes far. So talk to us about how you have leveraged your influence to build wealth.
Well, I think right off the bat, I just think about the partnership that I have with Dr. Lynn. So yes, my notoriety may get me into, different spaces. It may bring a different crowd of people every time, wherever it is that we are. And that is just the catch-all so that when we get them there, they can hear Dr. Lynn speak. So, and many times over, I call Dr. Lynn my show and tell, because there's nothing that I can give you in a rhyme that will amount to what it is that she will say once she begins to talk about generational wealth. Once she begins to talk about how to get your money right. Once she begins to talk about how to clear your credit up. There's a wealth of knowledge that comes by way of, me stepping up front saying, MC Lyte, ta, but watch this. And then we bring forth. So I understand what it is that the name value that comes into play. But really, when it comes down to the nitty-gritty of what happens after music and what happens in your everyday life, what it is that she shares, I am well aware, is what matters, is what truly matters. Yeah.
And Dr. Richardson, I know you all know, has a show on WVON radio here in Chicago. The Millionaires, what is it?
Round
Table, because I was going to call it Club. Millionaires Round Table. I had an opportunity to speak with her the other day. Go ahead, Dr. Richardson.
What I would say about how I leverage my influence to build generational wealth is the only way I could describe it now is, and I can't equate myself to her because I was not there in that time, but I literally feel like Harriet Tubman must have felt. I am free, and now I'm going to get everybody else. Even against your own will. Now, I'm not going to shoot nobody. You might just feel like you got shot. But I have to go and get everyone. That's how I feel. And I feel like I'm no longer looking for solutions. I spent the great majority of my career when I decided to exit the corporate space and understand I was working for one of the most powerful women in the world. Today, everybody knows her as Tashonda Brown Duckett, the CEO of TIAA. But at that time, she was running a division, and I was her show and tell. I had the biggest spending account, running all the initiatives. And I was at a meeting, and they asked what I was going to do for the next 5 years. And some verse came out. Before I knew it, I was talking about helping people be free and God and so on and so forth. And they all looked at me. And once you said it, I said it. I couldn't take it back. And so I took all of that knowledge that I had amassed to help one of the world's largest financial institutions. I said, they're great. They have trillions of dollars. I'm not gonna take this knowledge and pour it into first Russell Simmons, and I ran one of his companies, and then into MC Lyte. I still run all of her companies, and Lil Mama, and Sheila E., and all the people that I've worked with. But what it really means now, because I believe, because the attention is on them, and with our organization, Hip Hop Sisters Foundation, we have given over $1 million in scholarships just over the past 10 years. Hashtag Educate Our Men. Our graduate, Joshua, he graduated valedictorian, has worked for Goldman Sachs. Devin graduated. His freshman year, he almost flunked out because he had to keep a 3.0 GPA. So I called him like Grandma B. I was going to whip him with a switch, and I told him if he didn't get those grades together, what was going to happen to him. I told him what classes to take. And when he walked across that stage, it was one of the most emotional moments I had in a long time. So for me, using the influence literally means you go and get people. And I remember watching Harriet, and at some point, you know, she was going right on the plantations and taking she was just going. She was relentless. And then they passed the Fugitive Slave Act. And so now the slave owners could go into any state and go back and capture their slaves. And so all the abolitionists told her, it's not safe anymore. We have to move further up to Canada. And you've only gone 100 miles. This would be 600 miles. And she said, I'm not going to stop freeing slaves because it's far. I'm not going to stop freeing people because you're tired. I'm not going to stop freeing people because you don't listen. I'm not going to stop freeing people because they say we can't do it. I'm just not going to stop. So for me, each one teach one. Make money while you sleep. I have 8 principles. Number 1 is to spend less money. Number 2 is to get more money. One stream of income is hazardous to your wealth. Number 3 is get your money back. Understand the tax code. Understand that when you eat a meal for business, you get the money back as a tax write-off. If you just go out to eat for free, you don't. Make your money grow. Money will work harder for you than you can ever work for it. Think about how hard you work for your money. It'll work harder for you. Number 5, protect your wealth. Make sure you have life insurance, not just a burial policy. Key man insurance, disability insurance, long-term care. Make sure that you're insuring the things and have an estate plan, not a stake, S-T-E-A-K, an estate, E-S-T-A-T-E, so that you can pass on wealth to future generations. Manage your credit, own where you live, and then tithe, give, stop hoarding. If you have 500 pairs of shoes, 700 pairs of pants, 300 shirts, and 700 coats, get rid of that stuff. Make room for some things so God can bless you. So that really is what it is. And if each one of us can do those things and teach one, then that's what using my influence means.
Isn't it beautiful seeing 3 black women do all this? I'm just sitting here and marveling. Look, Ms. Richardson also, Harriet Tubman also said, I would have freed many more slaves if they only knew they were slaves.
I feel like we in church. I said, Jesus.
So,
that part.
Yeah. So let's have some real talk conversation about this question. So my grandfather was born in 1871 in Mississippi, R.B. Smith, born into slavery, ended in 1865, but no one gave him the memo. He became a farmer, sharecropper. Farm was worth $700 in 1920. My father became a businessman. He had me at 53. I became an entrepreneur. My mother's grandmother, my great-grandmother was a slave. My grandmother lived in East St. Louis in a shotgun shack. You don't know what that means? It means that you can shoot through the front door all the way to the back and hit nothing all the way through. It's one building. My mother and our sister lived there. My mother's mother used to take her money when she worked cleaning houses, so she learned to save. So when mother would ask her how much you made, she said, I made 25 cents versus 50. She kept the 25 herself. That served her well when she was married to my father, who could make money but couldn't keep it. And my mother and my dad divorced over money. The number 1 cause of divorce is money. My mom and dad divorced because my dad beat my mother. Domestic abuse. Number one cause, domestic abuse is money. We owned a gas station, an apartment building, our own home, all that stuff. We lost it all because my dad would not listen to my mother. They didn't realize that they were better together. To Ms. Richardson's point, if you're in a relationship, this is the only time I don't think math works. I think I love math because it doesn't have an opinion. But in this particular instance, I'm going to tell you, in a relationship, math should not work. If 2 plus 2 does not equal more than 4, get out of the relationship. You need to be better together. My dad, yes, my dad would not listen to my mother. And my mother was a financial genius. My dad was a hustler. So they broke up. My mom left. We lost it all that generational wealth. So my great-grandmother was a slave. My mother owned a shotgun shack. My mother owned a home. She went and bought a home, then bought 7 homes. I own 700 homes. I'm the largest minority owner of single-family rental homes in America today. Operation Hope takes my money. My businesses make my money. People know me about Operation Hope. I'm a businessman and an entrepreneur. I just don't talk about that part of my life. But I think you need to understand that I'm not selling wolf tickets up here. I'm not giving you some motivational speech. I'm telling you that I was homeless in 18 years of my life. I'm telling you that my mom and dad divorced and they beat each other when I was 5 years old, and I watched them. I'm telling you that when I went to go live with my mother, who lived with her girlfriend, that she told me was her cousin, so I would not feel ashamed. And then she told me the guy who saved my life when I was 7 was my uncle. He was really the boyfriend of my mother's girlfriend. We stayed there, and I was swallowing my tongue, Treasurer. He saved my life. I watched him every day. He saved my life. Unfortunately, I didn't know he was a drug dealer part-time. Real talk. He came home one day, and the people that had the territory where he was selling drugs followed him home, and in front of me, at 7 years old, ran him down on a bicycle with a truck until he was dead, in front of me. That's not what a 7-year-old kid should see. That was also about money. We moved in our first house, 15502 South Fraley, Compton, California. We all remember the address of our first home. That was my mother's home. She owned that home. She put the down payments because she stayed with her girlfriend. She did what my Hispanic friends did, which is to live together until you can afford to buy separately. She bought that home with her own down payment, working an hourly job at McDonnell Douglas Aircraft, making what would be called today $18 an hour. Real talk now. We're there. My best friend was George, smarter than me. Smarts are not enough. But he didn't have good role models like I had, because my mother told me she loved me every day of my life. Nothing's more powerful than a child being told that they are loved. So I have many problems today. Self-esteem's not one of them. And that has nothing to do with me. That's my mother talking through me. Real talk. My best friend, George, I wanted to be like him. He didn't know who he wanted to be like. He hung around with my next door neighbor, Tweet, who was a local drug dealer, and got shot and killed with Tweet. So when I'm 9 years old, talking about leveraging experiences, I'm 9 years old. I've seen enough. So I looked around, and there was a banker teaching financial literacy in my school. Make a long story short, I asked this banker, white shirt, blue suit, red tie, what do you do for a living, and how'd you get rich legally? Real talk. He said, I'm a banker and I finance entrepreneurs. I said, I don't know what an entrepreneur is. I've never heard that word my entire life. But whatever it is, if it's legal, and you're financing it, and every building I see that says bank on it in this country is financing it, and there are 75,000 bank branches and 6,000 banks in the largest economy in America that's financing this thing called an entrepreneur, whatever that is, I'm gonna be one. And so I went and found out the liquor store sold candy down the street. And I said, I want to work for you. He said, sell candy. No, I don't want to sell candy. I want to be a box boy. That's the worst job I got. That's the job I want. Because all I want to know is, where'd you get your inventory? It's on the side of the box. How much is your wholesale rate? What you paid for it? What's your retail rate? That's your markup. What's your profit rate? The difference between. I quit 3 weeks later. Went home, borrowed $40 from my mother because she said, life is tough, pay me back. Made $300 a week, put the liquor store out of the candy business, became an entrepreneur at 10 years old, and I literally have not stopped. I said to you earlier, if you hang around 9 broke people, you'll be the 10th. The opposite is also true. So what did I do to leverage? I leveraged my relationship capital and my knowledge and my hustle and my experiences and even my pain. Because rainbows only follow storms. Don't let anybody tell you what you cannot do.
That's right. What's the saying? That part. So I have one more question, and then I want the panelists to give their closing comments. And I see we're witnessing, we're clapping. I told you all when this started, we're changing lives today.
Write it down.
Write it down. I think I'm a young woman, and I can't remember everything, or whether that 6-year-old running me crazy, maybe that's the case. But please write it down. And let me say this, as I have a question for Dr. Richardson, and then I want our panelists to give us closing comments. Listen to all of the stories, humble beginnings. A lot of times we look at celebrities, and we look at stars on television, and we think that it's so far-fetched, not understanding where they come from. They are just like us. They are just like us, but they made it.
Plus hustle.
Plus hustle. But there's a reason that they are here, to help us make it. And so we don't want to leave this room the same. And so, Dr. Richardson, I have a question specifically for you. What can someone do, and you spoke about the 8 principles, and we may need refreshing on that, but what can someone do in the next 90 days, 90, to assure that they are on their way to accumulating wealth and passing it on?
Over the next 90 days, I would recommend that every single person do, I would say, 3 things. 1, change your mind every single day. If you're going to change your mind every single day, you need to do just what Mr. John said, and that is write. Thoughts disentangle themselves when they pass through your fingertips. For the next 90 days, write what it is that you want. When we do our annual event, the Wealth Experience, and we're coming back, we have been on break since the pandemic, but we'll be back in 2023. At the Wealth Experience, the last one, I was able to share with all of our attendees my journals. My good friend David Duster, he told me back in 2004, you need to write everything that you're thinking, what you see, what you want. He said, because there will be no way in time to prove literally where you were to where you are right now. And so when I look at those journals, what I wrote in 2004 is happening today. What I wrote in 2006 is happening today. So first, you've got to let the thought get out of your head. So many of us have so many things we want to do, but the truth is, either A, you're not going to remember it all, B, you're going to talk yourself out of it, C, somebody else is going to talk you out of it. You are going to run into haters, naysayers, blockers, and crab barrel leg pullers. And you need to be reminded of what it is that you say that you want. That's number 1. Number 2, get in class. If you could be wealthy alone, it would have already happened. I tell people all the time, they'll call and ask a question and think that it's a simple answer. There are no easy answers to hard questions. It's a thing. So in the 21 Days to Financial Freedom, and everybody says, Lynn, I want to get my money straight. But nobody wants to answer a simple question. How do you feel when you have to tell your child, no, you can't have this video game? See, if you can't tell your child no to a video game, if you can't tell your child, no, we're not buying Christmas toys this year, we're buying stock. If you can't tell your boo, who done turned into a who, what, when, where, why, how much, to let go, then you can't amass wealth because it is a mind change. So get in class so you can learn how to do that. The last thing, the third thing, and it's the most important, when I was #1 at Prudential and all these companies, and I wasn't trying to be #1, it just happened. I was the top salesperson, not just the black or female, but across the board. And they'd say, well, Lynn, tell us your success principles. And the Asian ones would stand up and say how hard they worked. And the Caucasian people would stand up and say they had excellent customer service. And I would stand up and I said one thing: acknowledge God in all your ways and he will direct your path. That's the only answer I got for you. And that's every single day. Acknowledge God in all your ways and he will direct your path. The Bible says that God will bless you with the wealth and he will add no worry to it. So if there's worry attached to your money, get rid of it. If there's worry attached to your honey, get rid of it. If there's worry attached to your tummy, get rid of that too. Whatever it is. So change your mind, get in class, and acknowledge God. Do that for the next 90 days and watch your life change.
Woo! Woo! Now, let me say this as I open it up. I'm going to ask MC Lyte, then Dr. Richardson, and John Ho Bryant to give their closing comments. We're going until 3 p.m. today, but if anyone is live right now, which I saw a couple of you are, I mentioned as I walked on the stage, early bird gets the worm. Please don't come at 3 p.m. and think you're going to receive this type of knowledge. We're going to have something for you at 3 p.m., but you need to get to UIC Forum now. Admission is free. Parking is free. You can hang out with us all day. We have a lot going on after this. Workshops outside of these rooms. We have resource tables all throughout the room. We have food. We have drinks. Not Saturday night drinks yet. We have, soda, water, juice, all of that. I got to be clear. But there's no reason to leave. We have a lot more to come because we want you to learn, and you need to be texting others to tell them to come. I know that we have Damon John still coming and Bill Rancic, but we need you all to be in the room, and we need more because this knowledge should not be wasted today. There is no excuse. Everything is free. And I know how parking is. Sometimes we don't go places unless parking is free. Well, it is today. So be certain that you spread the word. There's more to come. But as we conclude this panel, because I have enjoyed myself. Have you all enjoyed yourself today? I have enjoyed myself. I have learned a lot today. So I want you, there is no question in this closing comment. I just want you to talk.
I just want to say, first off, thank you so much for having us, Soror. 1. 2, this is no easy feat to accomplish, right? So we commend this sister here for having this entire platform for you all today. Third is, this is a life-altering moment that you are a part of right now, and I'm not quite sure if you all understand it, but there is a miracle in the working for you, for your family, for your community, your neighborhood, and I see some young people here. It's interesting that the only gentleman on the panel, John, that he spoke of that moment that his life was changed by seeing that gentleman at his school and taking note to the way that he carried himself and the way that he was dressed, and he wanted to know. That is just curiosity. We all must have a little bit of curiosity. And when he talked about the 9 friends who are broke, you're going to be the 10th. Finding a new circle to become a part of, finding mentors, and then also taking note that you must be aware. You have to be present and in the moment to receive the gift that God has for you. So if you're in a bad relationship, if there is something in the midst of where it is that you are in your life that is zapping you and usurping your energy, you're never going to be present in the moments where there are gifts for you. So I would say, Try your best to be present in each moment, in each room that you walk in, because there's a gift for you there. But there's no way to tell if you're down and out, if you're feeling sorry for yourself, if you're being trampled upon in a relationship, domestic abuse, whatever it is that might be happening. So break free, break the chains free so that you can get the gifts God has for you. That's my closing statement.
Dr. Richardson?
My closing statement is really for you to understand that every single person on this stage has dealt with adversity. Unimaginable adversity. Adversity that should have taken us out and has taken many people out. Unfortunately, when we start to move forward towards something, the moment we hit a roadblock, you want to give up. Oh, yeah, see, I knew it wasn't. Let me help you understand something. The race is not won by the swiftest, the smartest, and the one who has no roadblocks. The race is won by those who endure to the end. Get to the other side. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care how tired you get. I've gone through foreclosure, bankruptcy, everything, started over, did it again, so on and so forth. Let me tell you, I would not quit. I created Wealth Vision 2020 in 2008 in Russell Simmons' office because I said by the year 2020, we will have a new vision of how wealth is transferred and created. And in 2020, we had the pandemic, and my online university became a global, I have students on every single continent except Antarctica. It changed. I didn't believe it when I said it, but I did it anyway. You are going to collide into your dream. You're going to collide into your blessing. You're going to collide into that thing. You have to keep moving forward and know that the more adversity, and I have to say this as my closing statement because everybody wants to give up. You can't give up. The only reason why we're sitting here is because we didn't give up. Nobody gave us we didn't grow up with a silver spoon. Nobody gave us a handout. Even if they did, we still had to work to build it, to keep it, to grow it, and to maintain it and sustain it. So don't give up. Les Brown says, if you can look up, you can get up. Russell Simmons says the biggest thing that I ever heard, we were in Seattle. He was on the Super Rich Tour, and everybody, all these businesses that he had, they were great. And even when I heard the question, I was like, oh, what's the answer? And someone said, a Caucasian young man said, Mr. Simmons, what do you do when one of your businesses fails? And I'm like, ooh, I'm about to write this down. He looked up and he said, you can't fail until you quit. Don't quit. God bless you.
John. Look how he looking.
I apologize in advance. You know, I'm tired of us strolling through our misery. I see most of you paying attention. There's some folks in there who are just having casual conversations. They're on their phone, they're looking at the wall, they're talking about some stuff they can talk about in 2 hours when we gone. Do me a favor. Don't do me anything, Ashley. Everybody in here, every person, stop what you're doing for a moment and understand this moment's not coming back. This today is not like some other Saturday. MC Lyte will be gone. I will be on a plane. Ms. Richardson will be in another state. The treasurer will be counting the city's money. Don't talk to me as if this is casual. Don't treat her like this was easy. Today took blood, sweat, tears, money, energy, Don't disrespect it by treating her with casualness. Before I say another thing, please, everybody in here, get on your feet and say thank you. Now, I love you. I want to take each one of you home with me. But I can't. My wife would not understand. But I'm going to do the best I've got in the next 3 minutes to pour everything I've got into you. I'm not giving you a motivational speech. You can't eat that.
Come on now.
I'm going to give you something you can take home. Number one, the first 100 people after this is over that goes to my table at Operation Hope, all services are free, by the way, and gives them your name, we're going to give you a free copy of my last book, Up From Nothing, that tells the story of how I did it. It's free.
Don't go yet. They're not taking names yet.
Don't go yet. They're not going to take it right now. I want you to pay attention to what's being provided. Number two, for those who missed that, I'm going to give the treasurer $2,500. And the first 100 people who contact her will get another copy of that book. Number three, because of her and city leaders, we're raising credit scores 54 points in 6 months, 120 points in 24 months. Nothing changes your life more than God or love than moving your credit score 120 points.
Come on now. You preaching.
There's never been a riot in a 700 credit score neighborhood in all of America's history. 700 credit score neighborhoods don't riot, they go shopping. You know where riots are? 500 credit score neighborhoods. And here's what you see. A check casher next to a payday loan lender, next to a rent-to-own store, next to a title lender, next to a liquor store, next to a pawn shop, next to a title lender, next to somebody renting rims for your car. And we act like it's normal. It's not normal. None of this is normal.
It's not.
We should be offended. We should be insulted. What did Malcolm X say? We've been bamboozled. We've been tricked. We've been fooled. It's what we don't know that we don't know that's killing us, but we think we know. My team, for free, is raising credit scores, I just told you, lowering your debt by $2,600 in a year, raising your savings by $500. And what do I want from it? Your success. Now, here's what I want you to do when you leave here today. Yes, Ms. Richardson said it. And by the way, you should go to her if you can and be her client. Yes. Listen to me. Change your attitude. She already said that. I'm not going to cover that. Number two, change your environment. I already talked about it. I'm not going to cover that again. Number three, stop spending your money where people don't want you, with money you don't have, in a place you don't own. Excuse my French, about shit that don't matter. Stop renting uptown and decide to buy downtown. Let me tell you something. I want you to buy the worst house on the best block in the hood. D-A-H-O-O-D, the hood. It's called inner cities. An inner city in France is called Paris. Everybody loves our communities but us. Buy it, listen now, rehab it, and rent it. Do not sell. Real estate values have never gone down in American history.
Right.
Ever. Buy it, rehab it, rent it, and hold it. Buy it, rehab it, and live in it. Buy it if you have to, rehab it, and sell it. I don't like that idea, but they do flips. If that's all you can do, fine. I want you to own your block. Now, here's some data for you, and I'm done. I know I'm boring you. I'm going to leave you with some data. Maybe you'll believe this. 60624 zip code.
That's where I live. Who live in 60624? That's where I live.
Now, anybody in here, you're driving up what I'm just telling you. Here's the numbers for your city. Credit score in 60624 is 597.
That's the west side of Chicago.
Credit score for 60614
That's the north side.
is 739. Stand by. Median income in 597, 25,000. In 60614, 117,000. Home ownership rate in 60624, 27%.
That's the west
In
side.
60614, 45%. Crimes per 1,000 residents in 60614, 5. Crimes in 60624, 75. Life expectancy in 60614, 81 years. In 60624, 69 years. Last point, graduation rates. 60614, 92%. 60624, 63%.
And what you missed is that the difference, the geographical distance between 60614 and 60624 is 15 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I can't fix racism. I can't fix bias. I can't fix that orange-haired dude in Florida. I can't fix a whole bunch of stuff. You can't either, but you can fix your credit score. You can fix your attitude. You can fix who you hang around. You can fix who you let hang around you. You can fix where you rent or you're gonna own. If you can't get a job, cash your check, then make a job and write the check.